Fantastic. Let's welcome back Natalie to the stage to introduce Brand's next stage, the Playbook for Entertainment Partnerships. Give her a huge round of applause.
Hello again. We've got our last panel of the day with a great group. We've got Britt Johnson, CEO of Media Placement, Magno Heron, VP of Global Brand Partnership Marketing at Netflix, and Laura Dyer, Senior Vice President of Global Marketing at Shark Ninja.
Thank you, thank you.
And to kick us off, we've got a sizzle reel that you provided us with, Britt. So let's take a watch, and then
You asked for it.
we'll talk about it.
2 vodka martinis, shaken, not stirred.
Tanqueray martini with a twist.
Not once in my life did I see that man eat a pinkberry or use a punch card.
This is when you know you've made it in life, when Pinkberry does a clean sugar swirl.
We recently teamed up with Ally, the nation's largest digital-only bank.
Oban 18. Well, how'd you know?
Hey, Lexus, play Ava Flav's Ooh, she's serious about that paper playlist.
It's a quality, long-lasting brand in the same way that Superman has lasted since 1938.
Hey!
What? You want me to drive?
I wanted to add mystery in the drink to create that new blend for Johnny Walker.
This is the only mental health I need.
See you on set.
Not if I get there first.
I said one day someone's going to make an amazing movie of this. Never think it would be me.
Revlon sourced all the colors that they used to use in the 80s.
My favorite product that helps me not get sick on the road just sent me all this cool stuff. This is not an ad, by the way.
I am here at the Critics' Choice Awards with Cold Stone Creamery.
Free Guy just came out on DVD, and they sent me over this dream gamer package.
Yeah, we'll just get the Johnny Walker Blue.
So those are some of the most premium environments that brands can be in today. And Hollywood is growing increasingly more comfortable with including brands in their IP. And I want to start with you, Britt, on where do you think we're at right now in that relationship between Hollywood and brands, specifically around integrations and the way that they can lead to some bigger partnerships?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that where we are right now, I think is one of the best places we've ever been to. We've been doing this for almost 29 years now, so you saw some of that work here. And I feel like we've got writers, we've got producers, we've got studios. Everybody wants to find the right fit for brands, and I think that for us, it's really about, we have a lot of opportunity, but it's really about trying to find the right spots where brands belong, because I think that the biggest mistake we can make is trying to force messaging into something that doesn't make sense to consumers. They're just so smart right now, and I think that this area is a place that it's kind of sacred. I think that we just heard the creators that were up here earlier, the Gen Z, right? It was Gen Z, yeah, sorry. They're tuning back in. They're going to the theater. They're streaming constantly. And I think that it's just really important that they can smell something that isn't authentic. So the question isn't how do we get our brand into a Netflix project, it's where does our brand belong in that? And I think that that's kind of where we're really following and trying to figure out how those partnerships also, not just integrations, how we can really, really max it out and make these really incredible spaces for people to enjoy and extend, whether it's pop-ups, all the different things.
Laura, you work at a brand, and you guys have become increasingly comfortable with, giving some creative control over to Hollywood screenwriters and writers and directors to integrate your products into their content. What do you think has shifted that's made it so that brands are more comfortable kind of forging that connection?
I think it's I mean, anyone who's been to Cannes for the last 2 years can't get away from this idea of you've got to be in culture. You've got to be in the zeitgeist. It's not marketing anymore. It's like cultural whatever shtick that particular company wants to use, but it's all about culture, right? And then what does that really mean for the brand? And to me, it means I don't want our customers and our audiences to feel advertised to. I want them to want our products because they are entertained by us, or they see someone in a movie or a series using our products in an authentic way, and they're like, cool, I want that. Like, I don't think any consumers, not just Gen Z, I think all consumers now are really sensitive to, I just got served an ad, instead of, I just like got recommended this thing. All that buzz of discovery, like that clip with the whiskey I told you last week from Dutton Ranch. What was it, Oban?
Yeah, Oban 18.
Oban 18, okay. So I'm watching it on my husband, and he's like, we should get that. And I'm like, yeah, because we want to be Rip and Beth. I mean, we're not. But like, you have that feeling, right? You're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to get on the internet. I'm going to find it. I said to Britt, I said, I bought that whiskey. That was you. So I want people to feel the same way about Shark Ninja. I want them to be watching something, see someone using the cryo mask or making a slushie or making a creamy ice cream and think, yeah, that's cool. I want that.
Even you are not immune to a good...
I'm the worst. I mean, I know I'm being advertised to, and I'm like, give me my phone. I'm looking it up.
At least you know what you're doing. Magno, Netflix has had an interesting journey with advertising, not only in terms of, introducing a ad-supported tier, but also in how you're integrating brands into your programming. That's not something you guys were always comfortable doing. So what has shifted at Netflix in the last few years?
I think Laura just said it best, and that's like music to our ears, right? Like it used to be, and we were totally against doing integrations because it felt like it was going to be disruptive to the experience of what you're watching. And we didn't want to do that to our creators. We wanted them to have that freedom. But more and more, we're having these kind of conversations with CMOs, with brands that like, we actually don't want to disrupt. We want to be authentic to the show. We're going to surrender control to you guys to tell us what is the best scene, obviously within reason. Yeah. But then from there, it gives us all the ability to say, great, now that product's in the show, how do we now take it to the fans so that they can engage with them? And that's where you co-create campaigns, and that's where you take it to market. So we have this philosophy that our integrations should be seamless and authentic, but the campaigns that we do after the fact that they're integrated should be as disruptive as they can and should meet fans where they want to be met. And hopefully lead to more examples like that. But I think that conversation is the one that's made us open up our content and said, you know what, we can probably do this at scale now.
I think, Britt, you've been instrumental in that model as well. Like, we're not paying up front, right? So Britt will come to Shark Ninja or to me and say, hey, there's this great Netflix show. There's an opportunity to potentially integrate these products. It's all organic. Send them. It's risk-free. Maybe it makes the cut, maybe it doesn't. I'm like, cool. I don't want it to make the cut if it doesn't feel real. So call me afterwards, and if it does, we'll blow it up at time of release. But it's like no pressure, right? There's no big check at the beginning that says, I need to be in 5 scenes and shove it down the audience's throat.
Magno, what's the flip side of that conversation? What are the conversations that Netflix is having with the creators of its shows where you're coming to them and saying, hey, we've got these Shark Ninja products, like check them out. Like, how do you start that?
It's a full spectrum, right? Like you have some creators, directors, showrunners that are like, absolutely not. Like, I don't want anything to do with this stuff. But little by little, they're also understanding. And so we're patient with those folks. There's also others that are like very open to it and want to create. Like Darren Starr is an example. Mindy Kaling's another example that's very open and willing because she has figured out how to write into the show in a way that feels true to the characters and true to the scene that she's creating. And the other, like, I think sometimes we're helping creators, right? Like the Duffer Brothers. When you think about the world that they were trying to tell, or bringing back the 80s, right? And so there's no better way to paint that picture to people than to show you what a Burger King used to look like or what a Coca-Cola used to be like. So it could be in multiple ways. So sometimes it's not an easy conversation, but most of the times now it's starting to be like very natural to the storytelling process.
Yeah, and I think sometimes an integration can start that way because we certainly love the large partnerships that we can do, but there are times that we want to just, we sent LED masks, the Shark Ninja LED masks to Nobody Wants This season 3, sorry.
My wife loves that, by the way.
And we sent it just to the cast and to the makeup department, and next thing you know, it's on, Lupe, what's her name? Anyways, Justine Lupe, sorry. Don't mean to not get her name right. But next thing we know, it's on her Instagram, and then on top of it, it's into the show. Somehow she's now.
She was on my flight, by the way.
Was she really? Yeah.
So this is a story you guys told me earlier that I loved. So Laura, you guys sent these cryo glow masks to the entire writers' room, right?
Yes.
And just said, try them out. Play around with them.
Yeah, play around with them, give them to the cast, keep them in the writers' room, do what you want with them. We think it could be a fit. If it's not, no pressure. And then we think we've made a scene, and then, the actress was like, okay, here we go. Justine was like, she posted on her handles, and then as a brand, we can reach out to her and say, hey, like, do you want to maintain regular contact? Like, there might be more things that we can gift her. Again, no payment, like, just no pressure, right? I will say sometimes they turn into like paid long-term relationships, but not always. It's better to feel organic and real.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good example of a successful partnership. Imagine we'll be seeing those in the new season. Is that the idea?
Hopefully.
If they make the cut. No.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Magda just had him cut it.
Get it out of there. How else are you defining like what a successful partnership looks like today for you with a brand partner, Magno?
So integrations are one part, very important, but to us the bigger part is like we think about our members as fans, right? Our CMO Marion always talks about it. By the way, Laura was at Netflix and lived and breathed this with me.
These are my people.
Yeah,
we're like reunited.
Exactly.
On stage.
And so every decision we make should be in service of the fans, right? And so when we think about our partnership, it should be an opportunity to give added value to that fan, right? And if they watch that thing and they loved it and then they see it out in the world because the campaign was so smart, then that's not just a thing that was commercially viable or whatever. It would just become something that the fan really felt good about, right? Whether it's because they want to drink the whiskey and be like them, or because it showed up in an unexpected place for them and it just felt great. That's the kind of thing that we're looking for. And so we always look for brands that want to co-create with us. We look for brands that want to push a little bit, that want to experiment. We have an internal saying where we're like, a partnership's kind of like a hall pass for a brand. Like typically you got your media plan, you got your strategy, you're pretty locked into that. But when you do a partnership, you have permission to like get out of that lane for a little bit. One of the things that we did with Lexus was, the main character in Running Point drives a Lexus. It makes total sense for her character. But then you watch the campaign that we built around it, and it's her trying to get to, like, frantically get to a meeting, and her crew's with her, and they're singing to Evanescence, and they're prepping, and like, it just takes it to another place. And as a fan of the show, when you watch that, it's just like very appealing. So that's the mark of success for us.
Evanescence probably never played an Lexus commercial before, but
No.
maybe more true
And Lexus
to
has
how
never driven a
people-
car that dangerously either.
Yeah, so was that a conversation? I mean, I know we just talked about, like, brands are increasingly comfortable with handing over the creative to the creators, but was that a conversation that you had to have with them to make sure they were on board?
Yeah, we have a lot of those conversations. And, the way that we've built our team is we have an internal creative team that's really plugged into culture, conversations, the fans, what are they talking about, the scripts themselves, the characters. And so when you're bridging that gap, that conversation with a brand, it's really about like, hey, this is what the fans are talking about. We should lean into this space, or this is what the character would do. And then the brands bring their expertise of their product themselves, or what the audience that they're trying to reach. And that intersection of those two things usually leads to these really fun campaigns. And, I think depending on the show you're working on, right, that show lends itself for that kind of thing, and it would be very awkward to have a very serious Lexus commercial come out of that. It just wouldn't fit.
So we should show a clip that we have of another great example of a successful partnership that you recently did for Running Point. I won't spoil who the brand is. Maybe we can just watch.
All right, let's do it.
Travis, you put the team at risk. So,
Allow me to assist.
Really?
yeah.
How do you think the team played today?
Man, we absolutely
Succumbed to a formidable opponent.
An inch to the right. My right or your right?
Whoa, that tinfoil is gonna spark.
That's why I'm doing it.
I had a feeling.
What? Up, you got him. I barely touched him.
Hey, Travis, simmer down.
Okay.
You're good. State Farm with the assist.
So, you know, the interesting thing about this one is it's not product placement. It's the first time that we placed Jake, a person, a character, into a show. And the cameo in the show is quite short. He shows up courtside just like that scene. But the premise was that Travis really is chaotic, is a liability at every turn. And so the thought of pairing Travis with Jake, an insurance company, just made a ton of sense. And then we got to get creative with that. There was activations. And then the integration itself was quite subtle in the show. But it just, you know, it allows you permission to play in the tone of the show. And that intersection of State Farm and Jake with this character that's like total mayhem. If you've watched the show, like at any point, this guy could tank the team. So
great, really great.
Now, did this one start with Jake appearing in the show and then led to the other spots? That was a advertising spot that we saw.
That's a spot. No, it was a holistic conversation. We had a really fun chat at the upfronts, actually. You know, sometimes these things you're like, does actual work come out of these festivals? But that does. We had a genuine conversation with their CMO, and we were like, you love sports, you're about insurance, let us think about it. And then as the meeting progressed, we were like, running point, we should bring Jake into this thing. And then from there, it just like started growing and growing and growing, and you know, here we are.
So I want to talk about another big successful integration from last summer. Shark Ninja, you spent a lot of money to be on F1 branding for Apple's F1. A lot of people were talking about that.
I got a lot of incoming after that movie release.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
So the deal predated me starting at Shark Ninja. And as Magno said, I used to be at Netflix. So when I interviewed at Shark Ninja, I was like, well, first of all, I didn't know it was a whole company. I thought there was Shark and Ninja. So finding out it was Shark Ninja, at my interview, I was like, guys, you got to figure out some brand campaigns. Because, I had no idea. But and so it was the first time our logo had been anywhere really together. We'd done Shark, we'd done Ninja, we had never done Shark Ninja. And even employees internally, when I was new, they were like, yeah, we don't do that. And I was like, well, you do actually, because it's going to be all over Brad Pitt in like a month. So it was a real inflection point for the business, I would say. And going back to my interview, I said, I'm not a consumer products person. Like, I'm entertainment through and through. Like, I started in film, I went to streaming, I've worked in TV. I don't know how to sell fans. And they were like, that's fine, because we actually won a marketing leader who knows and understands entertainment. And we actually need someone as soon as possible to figure out this Brad Pitt movie. And when I arrived, I quickly worked out, I was like, oh, this is my world that the company was very new to and didn't know kind of the potential pitfalls of those kind of deals, right? And so we had an upfront fee to be integrated. We had a commitment to support at the time of release, and luckily I knew some of the folks over at Apple, so that pre-existing relationship really helped. But it was a huge success for us, and I do think it helped in terms of brand building. Suddenly people knew and understood who Shark Ninja was. And the partnership was perfect because we created the tagline, performance never rests. So we have great consumer products and world-class development and engineering teams. So does Formula One. And so we took that, and we are continuing to have conversations with various Formula One teams and to keep that kind of connection with that audience going, because it worked so well.
First time that a fake Formula One team logo could end up in a real Formula One environment at some point, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and what felt so successful about that was that, you know, people who watch Formula One are used to seeing brands all over the cars and the, you know, the jumpsuits of the drivers. So it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel unnatural to see the Shark Ninja logo there because that's something that you expect in that environment.
Right, exactly. That's why it was so perfect. And it's funny because I think, again, in all of the culture conversations we're all having this week, you'll hear a lot of CMOs say, I hate logo slapping. Like, a logo slap isn't real. Well, that was the epitome of a logo slap, I gotta tell you. But it made sense for our brand and the movie, so it was fine, right? But what I would say is, if I were to do it again, I would make sure that we were kind of buttoned up on the back end with influencers and social and affiliates, because I think we went into it a little naive and we thought it was going to be a media play, and it wasn't. So we had to play catch up.
I'm curious, you guys watched that happen last year. You must always be paying attention to cool things when you see them. What did that signal to you about kind of where we're at right now in terms of Hollywood and brands kind of, getting increasingly cozy with each other?
So our team talks a lot about brand crushes, and that made it to the very top of the board. Like, we were like, that's a good one. And you're right, like similar to Jake and, in basketball and sports, it's natural to have brands. They're sponsors. There's a lot of leeway to play. Even we worked with Brit on the naming rights for the stadium of the characters in the show. But this one, like, it was so good because that performance line, right? Like, it was like, yes, it's a brand, and yes, it's sponsoring, but to me, it worked so well because the brand is about performance, and the race car is all about performance. And so that just made it to me even better. And yeah, the point about activating further and being buttoned up, like, that is the next step, right? It's like one thing to get into the show, and the brands that like really do it well are the ones that have like the ability and will to go further and activate that even, outside of that.
And you were saying earlier, like, disruptive. I think I've taken a bit of my Netflix DNA with me to Shark Ninja, where I'm like, we have to create conversation. Like, don't be frightened. Like, the content that we make has got to be interesting and shareable and talkable. And oh my God, did you see this? The last thing I wanted to be as a brand is too safe and boring. Like, no one cares.
Yeah, and I think that consumers have always wanted to see what they're consuming, if it's authentic, right? Yeah. We used to get calls when Sex and the City was all the rage, and it was like, how do we get that placement, the Manola Blahnik placement? I'm like, well, it's one store in New York City, and if you happen to be there and the writers shop there, then good for you, because it's not something that we can really always create, but we can try, we can influence, we can do, all these deals, but I think in the end, a brand wants to be where it belongs, and it doesn't do anybody any sense to try to go outside of that. And I love what you said about that. I really feel like that really does a lot of heavy lifting for a brand that's really showcasing their new logo. I think it really belonged in that moment because we are, so used to see those brands. But definitely, I think that's really where the future is really making sure that, because it used to be, make sure we had a cookie company, Lou Biscuits, which is popular here in France, and they said, make sure they say it's with real butter, and I was like, no, we're gonna find the way to put this in there. We had
that would be weird, right? Oh.
It would have been weird. Believe it or not, it was on Will and Grace. Sorry to give all these crazy memories, but it was like there was a bit where they were literally saying petit collier, and you're not gonna say it's made with real butter and real ingredients and blah 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 blah, so. Yeah, you just can't have that. And that's worse than really some of the brand safety issues that we have to worry about, because, of course, brand safety is always a concern, especially with the bank, or we have Diageo as a client, and certainly we can't have anybody drinking underage. We can't, these are things that are just no-brainers. But what is a bigger problem, outside of that, because we don't really ever have those issues, just because the people we work with are so professional, it's when you really try to lean in too hard, and it's like, I don't want to use any examples because we've all seen them when it just is right in your face and it doesn't make any sense. You don't buy it.
Britt is usually telling me to be more careful. He's like, do you want to know more about this place? I'm like, no, it's all good. Don't worry about it. He's like, I feel like you should ask more questions.
No, I trust you implicitly, but I get your Sunday night emails that are like high fives. Yes, we're in. We want it. So, yeah, no, you're
and then my team follows up and says, actually, she doesn't know this, this, and this. But yeah, I think take risks, right? Just take risks. What's the worst that can happen?
It's interesting because you've talked about a number of different ways that Shark Ninja has shown up in the last year or so, and some of them are really high risk. and some of them are much lower risk. Certainly when you're just sending free product and hoping for the best,
Yeah.
that's pretty low risk.
Yep.
How are you making that decision for when to go for, the high risk option versus the low risk option?
It's interesting. We're looking at a deal right now that I can't talk about, but it's high risk because it's high investment up front. It's along the kind of sporting lines again. I think, we have a lot of data. We have a ton of data. We've built internal AI machines as well that we can literally feed in a name of a celebrity and it will come up and say, are they a match to our brand? Out of 100, what's the risk? What's the potential reward? And then it comes out with a recommendation. We can use all the data at our fingertips. At the end of the day, it has to be a gut decision where you say, you know what, we're going to go for it. Some of it is also relationships at the studio where you're like, I know that person, it's a risk, but I know ultimately we'll figure it out on the back end. So I think you just have to be, it's a mixture of data and gut, like all good decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because I feel like for many, many years, doing this 30 years, it used to be, let's just give Dunkin' Donuts to the set and hope for the best. And so now we're able to really calculate what in advance of what these things are going to be worth, what we should be spending, what that return's going to be, how we can build around that, and really trying to get as much runway as we can so that we can really build out a campaign. You want that Barbie summer where everybody is literally wearing pink and roller skating into your ice cream activation, being part of that and feeling like they want to share it with all their friends and fans and followers. So, but really that data, we've all worked really hard, and I think that we're getting to a much better place with that. So.
Yeah, so obviously we saw with this State Farm example how you can take something that starts as an integration and move it into a bigger campaign. Netflix now is also doing live events. You've got experiences set up around the country. Are you able to activate in those places as well? What does it add to the partnership to be able to, tap into that?
Yeah, it's just more ways that you can engage with Netflix now, right? I think the experiences is really interesting because we are a brand that lives in the cloud and on a TV. And to have something like Netflix House in Philly and Dallas, and brands can interact, and our fans get to feel and touch the brand itself, it's just one more way that we're adding to that space. And then live is really interesting for us because we're not after typical sports rights where it's every Thursday football or whatever. It's moments in the year in sports that feel like an event. So Christmas, Thanksgiving, football, those kind of things. And even within those, we're thinking, what is the Netflix filter for that? So the very first football game that we did, we had a Beyonce concert, basically, at the halftime show, right? My wife was like, oh, are we watching the Beyonce concert? I was like, it's our first NFL game. But that's an opportunity, right?
So smart.
To figure out where a brand can fit into that. So, yeah, we're open to that. As long as it makes sense, it's additive. It's just one more canvas for us.
I think it's a great canvas because for a brand like ours, our lifeblood is content and content made by creators and influencers and affiliates. We do very little traditional media. It's all about content. And so your live events and your experiences are amazing for brands because the ability to tap into your audiences and have people be able to create content with brands in the real world, in the real life, is huge.
I think that's a great place for us to wrap. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Natalie.